What is up, Anna Camden? I'm so pumped to introduce you to the Sports Spectrum audience.
Hey, Annabelle, thanks so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I know you're in literally like the thick of the season, so I so appreciate you coming on the podcast. So I'll kick it off with a question that I like to ask everybody because I think it's really fun to know what people are like super into, and it could be as little as a snack or as big as like something they're really going through. So, what is Anna all about right now?
Ooh, okay. One thing about me is I'm a versatile girl. So Anna's all about a lot of things. Obviously, Anna's all about March Madness. My team is still playing, and I'm really excited to see where we end up this selection Sunday. I'm all about figuring out the rest of my life. So like looking to get a job soon. My
We
kids.
all are. We all are.
Scary stuff, scary stuff. I'm always all about music. I'm a music girl. It's 79 and sunny in Richmond today, so you know I had my country music going. Always got some worship music going. And then also, I'm always all about food. Like, I'm a food girl at heart. I just baked some brown butter oatmeal chocolate chip cookies the other night, and they were
That
delicious.
sounds amazing.
Like, that's
How did you
kind of
make
something.
those?
Wait, sorry, what'd you say?
How did you make those?
Um, you brown the butter, which is my first time doing that, but brown the butter and then kind of just combine like all the regular cookie ingredients, flour, sugar, eggs, baking soda, all that kind of stuff. And they turned out really well. I was really proud of myself.
I love it. So this wasn't like a two ingredient TikTok quick, like this was
No,
like a
no, not
real bake.
quite.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
kind of what I've been going for is like the one, two, like you need three ingredients, takes you 5 minutes. So I'm like, wait, this actually took them 5 minutes on a reel. This did not take 5 minutes in real life.
right.
So that's awesome.
Honestly,
Good for you.
thank you. I've fallen trapped to so many of those like 5 ingredient recipes, and they just never turn out the way they look on Instagram. So I've just
No.
moved past those.
No, I'm prepping for a friend's or cousin's bridal shower right now, and I'm trying to do all the DIY stuff, and I'm like, it just looks so much better online. So
Yeah.
it's all the things. It really is. But before we talk about you and your basketball career and all the things, there's something super exciting that just happened for your family. Your brother got to play in a championship game that he probably didn't think he was going to play in, and they were the 12th seed in Delaware. And so, could you just explain how that was in making the trip up there?
Yeah, so my brother John, one of my, like he's my best friend. I'm so proud of him. They were the 12th seed. They played on the very first day of the tournament, won four straight games, knocked out the number one seed in the semifinals, and found themselves playing last night in the championship. They fell short, but it was a great game. I made the drive up to DC, which was about like 2.5, 2 hours here from Richmond. I'm just so proud of him. I mean, he's had an incredible breakout season, something that my whole family has always known he's capable of, and the fact that he finally got his chance, um, and has just been shining. It's everything we wanted and more. So I'm so proud of him, and I can't
That's
wait to see
so
what comes next.
awesome. It's so cool that you were able to be there, like in the most chaotic time of your career and your season. Like, are you kidding me? So cool that you were able to do that. And I just know, like, that sibling bond when you get to see your siblings, like, absolutely thriving, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, I think like as an older sibling as well, like that's like my kid. I'm like he's like my baby. Like
Yes.
when he's not doing well, my heart hurts. When he's doing well, I'm
Yeah.
soaring. Like I literally feel his emotions. So it was obviously it was tough when they lost, but again, I'm just so proud of him and that the fight they showed in that tournament run.
That's so awesome. I literally cannot relate to that more. I mean, my sister's in her season right now, and wherever I am, I'm trying to listen to her games and all the things. And I know one time I was like in public, and I was like, "Yes!" like just like listening to it, and somebody was like, "What? Like what's going on?" I'm like, "Don't worry, my sister, just their team's doing well."
Yeah,
So I can
exactly.
totally relate to that. Well, Anna, I would love to talk about your basketball career and all the things going on with the Richmond Spider. So first, do you have a favorite memory just looking back on the season so far?
Ooh, I like to think that my favorite memory hasn't been made yet. Hoping for a win in that first round of the
Good.
NCAA tournament. That will for sure be my new favorite memory. But so far, it would have to just be my first game back. Obviously, missing all of last year with an injury, the gratitude and excitement and just like joy, pure joy that I had that first game back. I'll never forget checking in. And I looked at my trainer and I was just like, thank you for everything. And she was like a little emotional and got in and got a quick bucket within like the first minute of being back. And I was like,
Wow.
wow, like this is
Wow.
incredible. So that's probably my favorite.
That's so cool. I definitely like feel that emotion when you said you looked at your trainer and you're like, "Thank you so much for everything." Like I can't even like fathom what that is, and I just know so many people close to me too who have gone through year-long injuries and coming back and having that first moment. It is like so incredible. But just for you in that moment, you were probably like as excited. You were probably just as like nervous, right? So what
Yeah.
were you? What was like going through your head on that first like kind of moments back?
I actually am someone who struggles a good amount with some performance anxiety, so I do deal with a lot of nerves, but it was the most spiritual thing ever that day. I wasn't nervous. I was just so thankful and excited. I feel like the Lord truly replaced any of my nerves with just like joy and gratitude. And I know I said those two words already, but that's exactly how I was feeling. And I think just trying to really remind myself, like, of everything that had led up to that moment, everything that I'd put in emotionally, physically, mentally, the sacrifice, the pain, the people that helped me get back to the game that I loved. I was just trying to soak in to all of those feelings and be present and enjoy it. And as athletes, we definitely don't do that enough. I know I definitely don't do that enough. I don't stop and smell the roses nearly as much as I wish I did. But in that moment, I did. And I'm really thankful because I'll always look back at it with a special feeling.
Wow, that is incredible. And it's cool that you're able to like reflect on that in real time. And that comes from like repetition of like talking to the Lord, being around believers, like going to church, listening to worship music. Like you kind of have to have that heart posture in order to like be able
Exactly.
to remember that, right? So you got 5 million things going on, just as you and the basketball player. We're not even talking about you as a sister, the daughter, the student, right? Like there's so many other parts of your life. And so for you to recognize that in the chaoticness of everything going on is really cool and it's special. So I just wonder, like, within your life at Richmond and your day to day, or just being a college student there, is there a specific group, community, or person that has really allowed you to tap into your faith?
Oh yeah. Honestly, I'm lucky enough to have a lot of people come to my mind. My family first and foremost. They're not in Richmond, but like my family are my rocks, and my parents have done an incredible job of always pointing me back to the Lord. My boyfriend Mac has strengthened my relationship with the Lord so much. I think our relationship is centered on the foundation of Christ, and like literally the two nights before um, that game, we were praying together over the game and surrendering it to the Lord together. So he's been amazing. And then I also have a small group here in Richmond that is from a local church, and we're all Richmond athletes, and that's been also something that we meet weekly. I help lead the group, and just again like Christ-like community, pointing each other back to Christ, talking about the shared experiences of being Christian athletes, all of that kind of stuff has been very helpful.
Yeah, wow, that's so great. And it's cool to hear the amount of people at like different categories of your life, like some people who aren't even in the Richmond basketball community or your direct family members that are able to pour into you. But you also probably, and I'm guessing like sought that out yourself. Like you went to go find that small group or somebody invited you. And I feel like as college athletes, it's kind of hard to get outside of your bubble because it's so comfortable and you're just with your group
Yeah.
and you got your routine. So how did you decide that that was something that you cared enough about to go invest in?
Oh man. So when I was at Penn State my freshman year, this is such a God thing. It's really cool. I knew that I wanted to find a church when I got to Penn State. Um, God literally put a church in my face and was like, "This is where you're going to be." So my freshman year, I'd been on campus for less than a week, and like I said, in the back of my mind, I knew that I wanted to find a church eventually. And I'm walking through the student hub, and there's a table giving out free coffee. I'm a coffee fiend. That's one other thing that Anna's all about. Is coffee.
Coffee. Okay, good. Me too. So the Anna and Annabelles are all about coffee. I actually had to like to be honest, I had a conversation with my mom this morning saying I need to drink less coffee. Like I don't think it's good for me. So don't worry, I am with you on that.
Yeah, so he's giving out free coffee, and I'm like, sure, I'd love a cup. And then I asked him, I was like, why are you guys giving out free coffee? And he was like, we're actually from a local church called Cedar Heights, and we're just trying to get students involved. So I was like, oh, okay, perfect. I would love to come. And that Sunday, I went to Cedar Heights, and I actually never went to another church in my 4 years of state college. And my senior year, I was baptized at Cedar Heights. Um,
Wow.
and so, like, crazy, crazy. I honestly kind of forget the question, but I think it was about seeking out those
Yes,
communities.
that was it. Yes.
So I think the first thing I would say is just to say yes when you're invited somewhere. That's really scary, especially if you don't know people. But like I said yes to that small group, and then a semester later I was helping lead it. I said yes to that church, and 4 years later I was being baptized. Like saying yes and accepting the opportunities that God puts in your path is a huge, huge thing, even if it can be scary and uncomfortable.
That's awesome. And you mentioned you were at Penn State, now you're a Richmond Spider. So could you just maybe describe the decision to use your extra year and go to Richmond?
Yeah. So after my senior year at Penn State, I kind of in my mind knew that I was not ready to be done. There were some people who thought I might be ready to hang it up and start my career, but I just wanted a different environment. And so I went into the portal with kind of a niche, knowing what I wanted. I know I wanted a smaller school. I know I wanted to win and to play. And I wanted to, obviously a system that fits my game, etc. And so Richmond really fit all of that. The location is unbeatable. The facilities are top notch. It does not at all feel like I quote unquote dropped down a level, as some might say. It's an incredible school. I already knew the coaching staff from when I was in high school, so I had a level of trust there. It just really checked all my boxes. And fun fact, I was actually born in Richmond, so it was like there were some family
No
ties
way.
and all of it. So worked perfectly.
That's cool. It's really cool when you get to see that like later, right? Like when you have those big life decisions and you're like, "Wait, them and them and them." It's like, "Okay, now I see how the Lord like really went before me in this way because that wasn't, the initial school that you spent your first 4 years at." So it's just cool that like there were those other ties for you there as well. But when you got to Richmond, right? It probably that first season probably didn't look like exactly how you planned it. You said you're coming off an injury, tore your ACL. So, would you mind just describing like what that was like? You're coming in and you think it's going to be look like X, Y, and Z, and then you get injured.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, I got injured on like literally the first day of workouts. So I moved into Richmond on Sunday night and Monday morning tore my ACL. Um, so it was scary. It was isolating. I had no time to build like relationships before this like traumatic, life-changing event happened to me, and that was obviously terrifying. But I knew and I trusted that God had me there for a reason. And even though I still had questions and some doubts, the Lord's strength really carried me through the entirety of that season of my life. And I could write a whole book about that, just about how He was there for me. Um, but yeah, there's really no way to put into words other than it's tough and it's lonely and you don't fully understand it unless you've been through it. But I know that, Romans 8:28 tells us that God works all things for good. And so I know that He has used that for good. I can see it in my life already, how He's used it for good.
That's cool. And I can't even fathom like being at a new school, a new area, and you go down, like you said, that was like a really traumatic injury and not even, not like, you don't even have a relationship with the training staff yet, right? Like you don't even know who's taking care of you. You're like,
Right.
nice to meet you. I just blew out my knee. Like, I mean, I can't even like fathom that. And the closest thing that I can get to it is that my sister has gone through 2 ACL injuries, and being near her for that was traumatic for me. So, like, I can't even fathom how that was for you in a new environment. And we had, like, she had her sister on the team, she had training staff that she knew, she had teammates that she had been with. So, it is so hard. And so, like, that is, like you said, like, it is definitely lonely and isolating and so challenging. And so, I just wonder, like, in that, road to recovery, let's start with just people, right? Because I'm sure there were other, physical things that helped you, but what people can you look back and pinpoint and be like, man, like, thank gosh this person was just present?
Yeah. Three people immediately come to mind. First would be my athletic trainer, Sarah. You joked about like you don't even know your trainer. Like she was my first friend in Richmond. Like we laugh about it now
Because of
because
your knee, because of
yeah,
your
we
knee.
were immediately bonded. Like the next
That's
morning at 7
awesome.
a.m., she was picking me up to take me to my doctor's appointment. Like that is my girl. We have an incredible bond, and like she was literally my first friend. So I love her and she's helped me through everything so much. Secondly would be I guess two in one. Beecher Porter, who is a strength coach here at Richmond, and Annie McPherson, who's our men's athletic trainer. Those three were kind of just like my little community of they rehabbed me and trained me back to health and to my comeback. And both of them are very strong Christians and just kind of always reminding me of the bigger picture and that the Lord is always at work, even when we might not be able to feel His presence. So they were huge, and just so willing to sacrifice their time and energy to pour into me, to be there for me. They let me cry in the training room when I needed to, or blare Taylor Swift whenever I wanted to. Like those were my people. And on that first game back, those were the three people that I wanted to celebrate most with.
Mm,
So, and then the last person I would say also would be again my boyfriend. I met him 2 weeks after I tore my ACL, and that was a gift from God because
wow.
to have like your person that you can always lean on and always talk to be alongside you during the toughness and difficulty of that journey. It was an incredible blessing that the Lord sent right on time.
Wow. So how did you meet him?
So, so long story short, he knew a girl on my team. And I guess I'd come up on like his Instagram or TikTok. And so he actually DM'd me. And he was
Amazing.
really smart though, because he DM'd me and he said, like, I'm from Richmond. I'm so sorry about your injury. I'll be praying for you. And I have a great local church if you want one. And that was it. Like, he didn't try to flirt.
He knows what he was doing.
He was, because if he tried to flirt, I wouldn't have answered. Like, I would have been like, boy, bye. But I was like, thank you so much.
Like,
What's
I
the
got
church?
other things going on, my guy.
I was like, thank you so much. What's the church? He sent me it, and then that was it. And then like a week or two later, he DM'd me again and was like, hey, like, hope you're feeling a little better. Would love to like take you on a date. And the rest is history.
Wow, that I love that story. He did a great job of setting that up and definitely like intentionally cared about you, but he definitely had a motive, okay? So absolutely love that. So thank you for sharing that. But as incredible as that is and the support system that you had, like you said, it was definitely super isolating and lonely and you were able to see the Lord just be with you the whole time, but it definitely became mundane because you're probably going to rehab every day and you get to sit at practice and watch it go down and just see all these things unfold about your, new life at Richmond that you probably thought would look different. So, what do you think looking back was the most challenging, maybe thought to overcome or just, part of your day?
Easily, and it still is, honestly, to this day, is the like, what if? Like, what if I didn't get hurt? What could have
Mm,
been if I didn't get hurt? Like, it's really hard when something unexpected happens that way. It's very hard to not question what would have happened if I didn't go down. Like, what would have happened if this went the way I wanted it to? And so I think, like I said, even now I still kind of have to combat those thoughts. And definitely did during that whole season. Like, my team did everything that I could have possibly wanted to be a part of last year. We won the regular season, we won the A10 tournament, we went undefeated at home, we went to the March Madness tournament. Like, it was a historical season for Richmond, and that's everything I wanted when I went into the portal. But I, in a way, wasn't a part of it, and so that was like really hard to kind of combat and figure out. But again, I just always kept coming back to like, the Lord will use this for good. There's a purpose behind this suffering. There's a hope from this suffering. I always say, like, God doesn't take away our suffering, but he reframes it and he gives us a hope that allows us to persevere through it. And so just relying on that when I would have those thoughts and questions were really, really helpful.
that is so good and it's so relatable. Like I can think of a million moments in my athletic career that I can relate to with that and even just like people that I'm really close to that can relate to that. So thank you for sharing because it's real and it's like this is going to happen so many times in your life and you might know next week, you might know in 10 years from now, and that's like the tough thing as believers as we're like, okay, God, like I have to trust that you're working this out for good,
Yeah.
right? And so
And
I love that.
yeah, and I'll also say, like, in the book of Job, who is like suffered, Job suffered so much. He never knew why he suffered. Like, the story never, like, in the book of Job, God never says, look at all the people you inspired. Like, Job never gets that. He was just a soldier for the Lord who suffered and kept his faith. And I have to say that I am so blessed and grateful and truthfully privileged because I've already seen so many positive results of why I was like suffering or why I went through that. The people that I've met that I've been able to impact, the girls that have come up to me and or the DMs that I get, like, it is a privilege and incredible blessing to be able to see the fruits of what I went through, to be able to see the way that the Lord is using it for good. And not everyone gets that. So I cannot like not acknowledge that I'm so thankful that I get to see parts of the way that he's using it.
That's so awesome. And I think too what's like unique about that is what you just said is like you're very public on social media about sharing your faith and it is so awesome. Like I love seeing it. I love to send people things and I think like the Lord is also like probably allowing you to see the fruits of this injury because like you're sharing it so well and people can be encouraged by you saying look at how the Lord is faithful, like look at what he's done in my life. And so I think there's like a real high correlation between like you being able to see it and the fruits of like you sharing that. Like I really do believe that. And so I know you've probably gotten like a million DMs and have so many young girls come up to you at games, but has there ever been a moment, maybe a message on social media or something in person that has really stuck with you that someone said, man, like you really helped me through this time?
Literally all of them. Like that's such a cop out answer, but it's not because it will never get old. It like knowing that the Lord is using me will never get old. And it honestly makes me a little emotional. I have a sticky note on my prayer wall over there that just says ACL girls. And every morning I pray
Mm,
for anyone who has torn their ACL, anyone that has DM'd me. If you've DM'd me, I probably responded and said, I'll be praying for you. I want you guys to know I actually do. Like I literally pray
that's
for all of you
awesome.
every morning. I think one that does jump out a lot was when we were in Spain this summer. Our team was in Spain across the country, literally across the world. And I had a fan come up to me, and her name was Natalie. And she said, like, you changed my life. I follow you on, you're an inspiration. I play basketball in Madrid, Spain. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, how have I
That's nuts.
absolutely nuts. And she was going through like this illness and just needed answers and like it was kind of taking her sport away from her and it was right after like my first scrimmage back and that it honestly didn't really go that well. And the Lord was like, bam, reminder of the bigger picture.
Hmm.
Like this girl came up to me and I was like, I was floored and just humbled. And so that one really jumps out just because it was like so far away. But there's really all of them mean the world to me.
That is so cool. And just like thank you because there are people close to me who are walking through ACL injuries right now, just some BC lacrosse girls and like and coming back from it. So like for me, like I'm not even doing walking through that right now, but like that means so much and I think it is really powerful when people say like hey, I'm praying for you and like you actually mean it. And I actually had a friend who is walking through some sickness in their family and they publicly said, "Hey, this like it actually means a lot when people say that they prayed for us today. Like I can't tell you guys how much it actually means." And so I was like, "Man, I should like if I prayed for someone, I should just tell them. Like I should
Yeah.
literally be like, "Hey, just want to let you know like I was on a run today, like was thinking about you guys and like said a little like, I just think it like matters. And I think today, like something that I find myself doing with like scrolling on Instagram so fast is that like I don't really pay attention to the content that I'm seeing sometimes as I'm just like this, right? And so something I'm trying to be more intentional about is just like stop like really reading what people are writing and reading what people are putting out there, whether I know them or not,
Yeah.
and just thinking like, okay, what's my role in this? So I love that you do that and you have a sticky note as a reminder because, like you said, you're gonna have tough scrimmages, right? And you're gonna kind of let the tough thoughts kind of creep in, and so that is really powerful. I love that.
Thank you.
And so that trip must have been really cool. What was your favorite part of that trip?
Oh gosh, Spain was awesome. We went to three cities. We did Madrid, Valencia, and Barcelona. I would probably say there was the second scrimmage that we had that entire day was my favorite day because we had the morning we got to spend at like a Barcelona beach, which was just
Wow,
amazing.
amazing.
Another thing Anna's all about, the beach.
The beach?
um,
Yes.
add to the list.
Soon, soon.
Yeah. But so I would say that day just because I love the beach, and then I had a much better scrimmage the second one. It
Good.
was just a really cool day. It was a beautiful day.
So my lacrosse team also went to Barcelona over a summer and we went to this, I don't remember what it's called. It was like the big market, like downtown in Barcelona. Did you go to that? It was like a huge food market by any
I don't
chance?
think we did. I don't think we
It's
did.
massive. All I remember, like people say Barcelona, all I remember is like I had the best empanada of my life. And it's like I think I continually think about it. I'm like, this is so weird. Why am I thinking about this one empanada
Dreaming of the
in
empanada.
Barcelona? I'm dreaming of the empanadas. So maybe I'll have to go back and spend a little more time at the beach and maybe not eating empanadas. But I love that and I think it's so cool, like the opportunities that college sports can give you, like just with your team and getting to go on, incredible trips like that. And just like traveling too, just like in general, it's hard. You
Yeah.
have a crazy schedule. And so when you are able to go do things out in the world, it is really awesome and fun. But I would love to talk about a TikTok post that you had, and you were just like recapping a moment at church, and this guy, I'm gonna have you tell a story. I'm just gonna give you the context. You know what I'm talking about? It's like this guy at church was sitting behind me, and he had prayed for me a year ago, and you probably know what I'm talking about. But I thought this was like the coolest God moment. So would you mind just
Right.
like sharing what you said on this TikTok?
100%. Okay, so this was like a week ago, and I walked in the first Wednesday at church, which is basically just like a mini sermon and worship night. And I walk into church, and there's a guy sitting behind me that I recognize. He's definitely on the prayer team at this church. And so I like waved, and I was like, "Hi, how are you?" And that was it. I didn't, really think about, like, I definitely know that he prayed for me at some point, but I didn't really think about what he'd prayed for or anything. I just said hi, and then he sat down behind me, and I sat down. And that week leading up to it, actually, so it was Wednesday, and on Friday we played in the first game of our A10 tournament for this season. And so the sermon starts, and it's all about how like the battle belongs to the Lord, and that He's always in control. And then after the sermon, they start singing the song "Trust in the Lord" or "Trust in God," sorry, which is just an amazing song. If you don't know it, everyone go listen. And so during the part of the song where it's like, "I sought the Lord and He heard and He answered," "I sought the Lord and He heard and He answered," all of a sudden, like, I just get this like whisper of like, what did I ask this guy to pray for? Like, this guy behind me is really coming in my mind, and I'm like, what did I ask him to pray for? What did I ask him to pray for? And all of a sudden, I just remember a lot of like tears. So it was a very emotional prayer. And then, like, alarmingly, like all at once, I remember the exact prayer, and it was exactly a year ago. I went up to him before last year's A10 tournament when I was injured and sidelined, and I asked for prayer because I was heartbroken, like, and I emotionally knew that that weekend, that tournament was going to be really hard for me to sit out. And so I asked for prayer. I asked for him to, give me humility and a compassionate heart to be a good teammate, and to put my own like hurt aside just to be a good teammate, be there for my teammates. And he prayed for that, but then he started to pray that like my journey wasn't over, that he prayed that I would remember that like the Lord still has work to do, like my journey's not over, God's not done, the story's still being written. And I didn't ask for that prayer, he prayed for it. And I had not seen that guy since that day. Literally had not seen him since that day. So a full year later, I'm about to physically play in the A10 tournament because my journey wasn't over, because God was still writing the story. And now he sits behind me, and I see him. And it's just like, it came back to me, and I'm just like crying in church. And so I said in the TikTok, but the song ends, and I turned around and I was like, I don't know if you remember me. I'm like crying. This poor guy's like, oh gosh, what's happening here? But I was like,
Oh,
you
it's so
he
good.
totally remembered me. And he was like, yeah, you got hurt on the first day. And I was like, I just had to tell you, like, I am 3 days away from playing in the tournament. Like, I made a full recovery, and I'm back, and we're, playing. And it was just like the craziest God full circle moment. The fact that I had not seen him since that prayer.
Yeah.
And then a year later, before the next A10 tournament, he's behind me in church. Unreal.
That is so crazy cool. Like it is so I wish like you could make like a little like reenactment of that, like on a video, like it's like a movie, right? Like
Yeah.
and you thinking back to like what was I praying? What was I praying? But I think like what's so cool about that moment too is like obviously like the exactly a year, hadn't seen him since, like this, but like what's so cool too is like you heard the song and you were like, I know that the Lord has been faithful, like in this way, like what was my exact request, and like
Yeah.
not all the time are we gonna feel our answered be prayers in certain ways, but like I do believe that like people speaking over you in times of like hurt and the unknown, really, like when people speak into you in the unknown and like speak life into you of, hey, like your story's not over, like there is more for you, like let me pray over you that you have grace in the hard moments to like be a great teammate. I do think that like that even just powered you through until that year, until you were back in that seat, right? Like you don't know like just the little whispers that will come into your head. And so I saw that on TikTok and I was like, this is a crazy cool story. I can't even like fathom that. So thank you for like posting that and sharing, because I think it can encourage other people just to like also be aware of it, right? Like if you weren't like actually in that service and you were like thinking about the Lord, then you could have been like, all right, when am I going to get my next coffee after church? Like what, thinking
Right.
about basketball, X's and O's, like, but you were present with the Lord in church. And I think, I know for me, like sometimes I get, sidetracked thinking about the rest of my day after I leave there. And so I just love that, how present you were in that.
Thank you. And thank you honestly for like appreciating the story because I know that I'm like I post a lot and I'm very vulnerable, but I still get nervous to share some of the more vulnerable stories like that. Like I still am like, is this dramatic or is this whatever? So I appreciate you that you saying that.
No, no, it's so good. And like too, I post a lot for my job. Like I post a
Right.
lot of interviews, and I think what's funny is sometimes I like trick myself out of, because social media, there's a balance with it, right? And I think regardless of what you're doing, whether it's your career or it's not your career, like there is a space that you need to have. And it's funny, I think sometimes I create that space by like pretending like I don't know that I had just like blown up my feed. And so someone would be like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this." Da, da, da. And I'm like, "How do you know that?" Like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, because I posted. I'm like, oh, you're right. I'm the one who posted
Right.
it. So I
Right.
feel you on that. But I think the more you just be you, like, it's all going to be good. And so thank you for just sharing that. But you did touch on earlier, just having a little bit of like performance anxiety. And I think every athlete faces this in like some respect, and this was something that I struggled with just in college, even for like certain drills that we would do at practice. Like I'd be fine, and then it'd be like, oh, we got this one drill, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is like the biggest deal of my life,
That's
right?
so real.
And yes, like I'd be like, okay, now like everything's about like it's ride or die on this one rep. And I
Yeah.
think like, yeah, like it's, you feel it. You're laughing because you're like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But that's the truth. And so something that a sports psychologist, Mark Lassini, said to me, he's amazing. He said, anxiety and gratitude can't coexist at the same time. And I
Mhm.
saw that you did, write something about this. So could you maybe just explain how you have experienced having gratitude in like the literal basketball practices of your life?
Yeah, 100%. The whole gratitude can't exist at the same time as anxiety is one of my best, most used coping oh my gosh, sorry, coping mechanisms because it is so real and it does work. Specifically with basketball, I'll be honest, it took having the game taken away from me for me to appreciate all the mundane little parts of it. Like I never step on the court. I haven't since I was hurt without being like, wow, this is incredible. Like the first time I ran a sprint up and down when after I was hurt, I literally like cried, and my coach was like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm just emotionally and so grateful to be running up and down the court." If you can't tell, I'm a crier. Okay, guys, I cry at like everything. Um, but yeah, so I would say like with basketball, just understanding like, or with sports in general, it can be taken away at any minute, and it's really the little things that you're gonna miss the most. Like I don't remember every drill that I won or didn't win, but I remember like the funny moments with my teammates. I remember the worst conditioning days that I made it through. Like those are the
Yep.
best
Yeah, you
memories.
did. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so like I think just appreciating all the little stuff, like the sound of the ball going through the net, man. Like one day I'm gonna miss that sound so much. Um, all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think just looking around and looking for the little parts. I will say, there's a quote from Albus Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore. I'm a big Harry Potter girl. And it says, "Happiness can be found even in the darkest times if only one remembers to turn on the light." And I would just encourage like anyone who's listening, like turn on the light. Like find some happiness, find some joy, find a little miracle from God. They're there. You have to look for them, but they are there. We just have to remember to turn on the light sometimes. And so, and the light can be anywhere. Like it truly can. It can be the perfect hot cup of coffee in the morning. If that is your little miracle for the day, then grab it and be thankful for it and run with it.
And
Like
get two.
yeah, go get to exactly whatever it might be. But like that quote right there, that like definitely helped me a lot last year as well.
That's awesome. I love that quote. Turn the light on. Is that kind of like the key part that you just said with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you gave an example. It's like it could be coffee, where you can find joy or, something in peace in that sense. But also too, like I remember there were times throughout my college experience when like the woman who was checking me out, like at the register for my like lunch is, do you have a girl? My girl's name was Gloria.
And I was literally just thinking this in my mind. But
No
right before you
way.
started talking about, I was thinking about the guy at the fresh market down the street. Like I literally before you
Love
started talking,
Fresh
that is
Market.
crazy.
That is so wild. Yeah, so for me, it was like the woman at the register, and she just would be like, hello. And she would do this with her hands, and she would just like give me the brightest smile in the beginning of my day. And it was like exactly what I needed to like set the stage. And regardless of like what was going on around me, I was like, you know what? This woman has shown me so much kindness. She doesn't even know me. By the end of graduation, we knew each other pretty well. But I just think like you're right. Like you have to look for that, right? And if I had just kind of gone about my way being like, all right, another woman who works at the school who just was smiling and said, thanks for coming by, then that would have brought me nothing. But like seeing like the human side of it and seeing like who the Lord was placing in my path,
Mhm.
like for that very moment. But I have to ask you, who's the person at Fresh Market that you love seeing?
Yeah, no, you honestly you described that perfectly. Like, amen, and retweet. But just there's a fresh market across the street from my apartment, and I haven't seen him in a while. But last year he was there every time I went, and it was just middle-aged man with the sweetest little Southern accent, and he would just be the happiest guy alive when I would check out. He'd be like, "How are you?" Like he would be ask how I'm doing, and be like, "Oh, like maybe talk about the groceries I got." I don't know. He was just so intentionally happy and engaged with me every single time. And it always lifted my spirit. It always did. And I was always like, you know what? Thank you, God. Like, thank you for that little interaction. And like you said, of the humanity, the part of it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. And maybe I'll have to come by the Fresh Market to meet him and let him cheer up my days. I love that. But I would love to know a little bit more about just like life at Richmond and like just being a student there and what that's like. So, do you have a favorite part of just going to school at Richmond?
Easily the community here. And I mean, like, our fans, the janitor, the custodians, other coaching staffs, like the community in Richmond, like is amazing. Everyone is so warm and welcoming. Um, there's a family, the Houstons, who they come to all of our games, and their daughter Ellie is like a big basketball fan, but her mom is just so warm and so like always gives us a hug after games, is always like plugged into the team, and I just like appreciate little moments like that in the community so much. I think especially when I was injured, like just like we talked about the little humanity interactions. Even my professors, like I haven't had many professors because I'm in a master's course or I'm in a master's program, so I don't have as many like in-person classes, but the ones that I've had have been so amazing. It's really the people here, honestly.
Good. That's so awesome. And it's so fun when you're able to like enjoy the school outside of even just your sport. Cause like, you experience part of your sport was taken away from you for some time, whether you're injured, you're not playing, you get sick, like whatever it is, like your sport isn't always going to be like the focal, like everything's going perfect all at once. And so I love that that was your experience, that there were, people around and that you just have really enjoyed it. But I'll ask you one more question. And this is, do you wear headphones or no headphones pregame?
Ooh, headphones for sure, because I'm a worship music before the game type of girl, and pretty much every team that I played on is like a rap and like hip hop before the game, which is totally fine, to each their own. But I love to like listen to some worship and like get my mind calm and just like surrender the game to the Lord, get ready. So I'm definitely a headphones in.
That's so good. I love that. And just to ask you, like, one, I know I said last question, but you said something so good. They're like, oh, just to surrender the game to the Lord. Like, whoa, that's a big statement, right? And so
Right.
maybe there's some like young athletes and maybe some, younger girl basketball players who, they are putting in their worship music and they're listening. They're, allowing the Lord, bringing the Lord into their game day and saying, God, I want you to, have a hand in what goes down on the court today. But what does that like really look like to surrender just the basketball game, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a basketball game. But like, what does that look like to surrender a game to the Lord?
Yeah, that's a great question, and honestly, something that I've like been figuring out over the last like 2 years of my life, largely like figuring out how to deal with this performance anxiety and now like kind of like a fear of re-injury, things like that. So for me, like surrendering the game to the Lord is acknowledging that like number one, He's in control, and because of that, I have nothing to be afraid of. Number two, that I can give absolutely everything I have to this game and not be affected or crushed by the result of it. And that, as an athlete, is the single most freeing thing you can ever experience. To know that you can and should, we are called to do everything to the best of our ability, so that you can and should do, like, give everything you can, run as hard as you can, be the best teammate, be the best encourager, like, jump as high as you can, whatever it might be. I can do all of that, and I will do all of that because that's what I'm called to do. And if I lose, I'm okay. That doesn't affect my worth because I surrender the game to the Lord. Like, I'm surrendered. That's not where my worth comes from. So for me, that's kind of what it looks like. And if I win, like, let's go. That's great. But either way, you don't get too high or too low on the roller coaster of like athlete validation, which we've all been on, whether you want to admit it or not. So I think surrendering it for me is really just acknowledging, like, I'm going to give this everything I have and it's in your hands. And from there, like, that's it. It's very freeing to play that way.
That's so good. I love how you talked about like worth, and you also said like, and you're gonna try your hardest and your best, because like that's the thing, is like you're still gonna be upset if you lose. You're still gonna be upset if it doesn't go your way, which is like okay, but you don't sit in it and you don't make it who you are and your value as an athlete. Like you're still just as talented and gifted as you were when you came into the game. You know, like nothing changed, but you didn't get worse. Like you probably got better actually. And so I just love that you like said that about your worth, because there's the reality that it is gonna, you know, however, even if you surrender it to the Lord, it doesn't mean that it's always gonna come out as a W, right? But you don't have to sit in that and that be determine your worth as an athlete. But Anna, thank you just for like sharing your heart and being so open and just talking about your experiences. I could literally talk to you for like 2 more hours, so we'll have to have you back on the Sports Spectrum's What's Up podcast at some point. Maybe we can do it in person and all things. But seriously, like cheering you on and just really want people to be introduced to you if they don't already know you, so that we get a more, oh my gosh, that's Anna Camden, you know, maybe not in Spain, maybe here in the US as well. I would love that. But Anna, thank you so much, and we're cheering you on.
Thank you so much, Annabelle. And just to give the Sports Spectrum a quick shout out, I told you this before we started recording, but my dad is the biggest fan of this podcast, and I've listened to so many of these episodes before I ever got reached out to be on it. So love this podcast. I'm so excited and honored, honestly, to be a part of it and to be on an episode. So thank you for having me.
Let's go. Thank you, Mr. Camden. We appreciate you too. Love it. Well, thank you, Anna.